Welcome to Sharing Hope. I'm your host, Jamie George, and our guest today is Mr. Caleb Grimm. Caleb is in a couple of different bands, so this is a little unusual. I got this band, I got that band. So Caleb's in a band called Anthem Lights. They have hundreds of millions of spins. Pandora, YouTube, you can find them everywhere. But they've just kind of taken the world by storm over the last few years, and they've created incredible renditions of songs. They've got just their music goes on and on. And along with Anthem Lights, Caleb also has a duet with his wife, Kelsey, who is about to have a child any day. So maybe we'll talk about that. But yeah, and by the way, they release music, and the next thing you know, it's in the top 10 of albums sold. So they've had tremendous success here in the last couple of years, and it's not a surprise because along with having incredible voices, they're just simply incredible people. So it's pretty special for me that Caleb is joining us. Welcome, Caleb.
Thank you so much. It's great to talk with you, and you're very kind. That was a really, really generous intro.
It's so true. So first, we got to check in on your wife. How's she doing?
She is miserable. She is so ready to get this child.
I'll bet she is.
In the world. Yeah.
Like, it's how many days? Her due date's when?
Her due date was May 5th. She set an induction date for April 29th. But she had a doctor appointment today, and the doctor said, come back for another appointment on Monday, and I think that you might stay because we're going to, do some things, and I think that you're going to be close to having this baby. So it could be a matter of days, truthfully.
And what was it like seeing the doctor in the world of a quarantine? Was it weird or was it cool? Was it okay?
Oh, it's so weird. It's so there are certain floors, I'm sure, that are just, packed with COVID-19 patients, but the rest of the hospital is completely...
It's like a ghost town.
Yeah.
Angie had a procedure with cancer about 2 weeks ago, and that was our experience too. I mean, there were only two patients on the floor, and the rest of the whole wing was just shut down.
Yeah,
and you're just like, and they're like, well, we're preparing for what we hope won't come, but but it's been crazy.
Yeah, I ask my wife several times a day. I'm like, is this weird for you too? Like, are you just like, isn't this just weird? Like this whole thing, like we as a planet are going through right now, and you can't interact with anybody without talking about it. Like I can't talk to anyone without some, how you doing? Like it's like a thing. You have to like release that tension before you can carry on.
Totally. Well, how are you guys coping? Have you come up with creative ways to stay sane?
Well, we have 2 kids, a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. So keeping them inside is, it's utter chaos, not being able to take them to the zoo or to the library, get them out of the house to burn energy. But it's good. I mean, we're super fortunate. We're healthy and we're self-employed. So our day-to-day hasn't changed a whole lot. We've canceled a couple of shows and we're recording and shooting less. But for the most part, outside of my wife being 9 months pregnant, things are pretty normal.
So you've been able to hang in there.
Yes.
When people start to talk about the uncertainty and you hear you and I have had a lot of conversations about the difference between fear and love, right? And getting caught and trapped in these energies. And how are you navigating? And I want to go back. I want to ask you about a time in your life perhaps where you went through something like this, but I'm curious in real time. All the fear that's out there, and some of it feels justified, right? Like it feels like it's healthy and appropriate to take precautions, and we certainly want to watch out for those who are even more susceptible. Right. But how do you navigate between getting lost in that fear energy and grounding yourself instead into a place of peace or love or trust? How have you been navigating that? I'm curious.
For me, I think I've learned several years ago that certainty is an illusion, so that knowing that everything is going to be fine is not really anything that we have control over.
Yeah.
So,
That's an illusion anyway.
Right. So when it comes to that, I mean, like you said, I think you can be cautious and you can make good decisions and be prepared and all these things, but you can make those decisions out of love for yourself, for your family, and not make those decisions based out of utter fear or panic.
Do you feel like what you came to a few years ago in some ways has helped you navigate this easier? Coming to that recognition that everything's an illusion?
Yeah, I think so. I think because, well, I grew up, we've talked at length about, where my background, but I grew up in an evangelical church culture, where I was just sort of handed a faith and a worldview, and you're kind of facing you with situations that make you ask questions and have you start to wonder, what do I really believe? Do I believe what I was told? If so, why? If not, why not? Getting married, I think seeing yourself reflected back to you through another person pulls out some of those questions. Having kids pulls out some of those questions. When you look down at little ones and you're like, man, I have to hand these children a way to see the world. That's a huge, daunting task. So to approach that with a sense of certainty seems arrogant in a way, especially when we claim to serve an infinite God, to come
it's
at it.
humbling.
It's
really, as you said, we've talked about this a lot, but we all have to go through a season where we begin to own our own faith, right? Whatever we were taught, and in the one size fits all doesn't seem to, where there are too many nuances to this thing called faith.
Right.
And to create space for people to ask questions and ultimately, and I think good parents do seem to do this, go, hey, I'm going to hand you this set of beliefs, but you're going to have to sit with God and find what's true with your relationship with God. And that's the journey, I hope, for all healthy families. Can you go back to a time in your life where certainty was more important, or at least it was framed in such a way that it was an expectation, and where your life was disrupted and how it became very challenging? And maybe how did you get through it, and what did you learn from it?
Ooh, good questions. So certainty was like everything growing up. I mean, that was faith and certainty were almost synonymous. Whereas now I would see those as polar opposites. So it's just been like this evolution of, I hate to say the word deconstructing because it's kind of a buzzword, but just tugging at threads and making sure everything is tightened up, as far as how I see God and myself and the world and what's going on. And, I don't believe that God changes. I don't believe that Scripture changes. But I do believe that how we understand God and how we perceive Scripture, that is constantly growing and changing.
How are you different as a person because it sounds like there's some surrender there. There's some letting go of
that's a great
of expectation, of outcome.
Right.
How do you show up in the world differently as a result of it?
I think when you approach other people like you don't have it all figured out, there is you said humility. There's a humility that comes with accepting that you are not in control. And then when you start to see other humans as former children, in a sense, like everybody's just out there kind of doing the best that they can with what they have, trying to figure it out. And we're all just the sums of our experiences and our relationships and conversations. And,
I love that. That's beautiful.
Humility to that.
Yeah. I read a piece. Brene Brown is a shame researcher, and we've talked about her. And I just saw this recently. She said she wanted to do this new research project, and the question that she put before everybody was, do you think, it's what you just said, do you think people are doing the best they can with what they have? And she said her hypothesis was, heck no, people are a disaster. There's no way they're doing the best they can. And the data came back, and she was like, I was totally proved wrong. Like,
wow.
The point was, people are like, this is you show up in the world with the tools you have. Now, hopefully we're growing and we're changing. But if we can really interact with one another in that space, it seems like it pulls a lot of the judgment off.
Right.
That tends to set us up against the other person.
Right.
Have you experienced that sense of everybody's kind of on their own journey? Have you experienced that, and how has that helped you with relationships, or not helped you? Has it made relationships more challenging, or has it made it easier to connect with people?
I think it's made it more challenging, to be honest, because vulnerability and honesty are not easy. And so if you're building real, it should be hard. Because
say that
it hung up. Difficult.
It hung up. Say that last part one more time. If you're being vulnerable, say that last part again.
If you're being vulnerable and honest, those two things are inherently difficult in the context of relationship. And if you're building genuine relationship, and something just like anything worth having, it's going to be hard.
Yeah. It's going to be hard.
And it kind of, when you step away from all the surface conversations and, like transactional relationships and stuff, and, really climb in the trenches with somebody, it's tough. It gets dirty.
Yeah. Is there a story or is there an example where you've done that? It's been hard, but you've experienced the fruit of it on the other side?
Oof. I mean, marriage is the first thing that comes in. Just, man, no idea what I was signing up for when I got married. Just how, I don't know, like I just kind of went into marriage several years ago thinking like, well, I've got the life that she knows about, and then I've got my thoughts and the things that, are kind of mine, and slowly but surely you figure out like that it's all both of yours, and you have to be a complete open book if it's ever going to last. And so,
yeah, because she's going to read it anyway, whether the thoughts make it out into your words.
Right.
Women have this intuitive ability to be like, I know you're thinking something. There is something that's not coming out into your mouth, but I can feel it. I mean, we feel the energy with people like that, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're not vulnerable and you're not open, somebody in therapy once used this as an example. I'll just use my phone, but they said trying to have intimacy while keeping secrets is like having a conversation like this.
Whoa.
Like if there's something in the way, you're never going to really connect until you just let go, and become vulnerable. So it's hard.
Do you feel like I've had some interesting conversations of folks in quarantine who they've had more time with each other in the house than they're used to.
Yeah.
And so some of that, it feels like maybe he's getting exposed. Like, hey, there's kind of something between us. But what if they're afraid to go there? Well, like, what if they're kind of picking up the energy like, hey, there might be something that we've been so distracted we haven't given attention to in our relationship, but it's kind of hard to ignore it. And any advice, because I know you and Kelsey have done a lot of work. We've had a lot of conversations about stepping into, it's risky to kind of let yourself be exposed. Any advice to someone that's like, yeah, I think there's probably something we need to talk about, but I'm kind of afraid to talk about it. What would you say?
Very practically, I would recommend finding the right time. Just come to your spouse or your loved one and say, look, I have something that I'd like to talk to you about. Is now a good time? And kind of give them an opportunity to, because you don't know what's going on, in where their mental state is, and just kind of give them an opportunity to sort of tie up loose ends so that they can give you their undivided attention. And I think having some sort of plan ahead of time as to how you language it and how you communicate whatever you want to communicate is wise, because if you just vomit everything, it might be a lot for that person to kind of sift through.
Yeah.
But I think beyond any of that, I would recommend having a third person there. I'm a huge proponent of therapy and counseling, and having somebody there, if it's, I don't know, I guess it would depend on what you're talking about, but having a third perspective in the room sort of to help you navigate a conversation like that, I think is always beneficial if it's somebody that you both know and love and trust.
Yeah. And in today's world, even if you got to FaceTime them in, like just having somebody there. Well, because I do think, in this time, it's forced us all to just look at our lives a little bit more closely, right? We kind of haven't had a choice, especially those of us who are, we're stuck in a house with somebody. And I do a lot of coaching and deal with a lot of couples. And, that's been a common thing. Like, we were able to hide from this before, but we can't hide now. Like, it's kind of in front of us. You and Kelsey have an unusual relationship in that not only married.
It's all reframed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, you're breaking up.
Yeah, go ahead. Say what you're going to say.
Oh, I was just going to say, for me, it's kind of reframed time a little bit. Like you look at your calendar, you open your computer, and there's just all these little boxes, of all the things, and you have big boxes, and, you say, what do I have in a couple months? Okay, there's 2 giant boxes, and in those, there's roughly 30 little boxes. You just kind of see time in this really grid-like linear thing. But when that all kind of just gets tossed out the window, it's like, okay, now I just have to be with myself, with others, with God. It just sort of reframes, for me, it's just reframed how I do my life, and I think that's going to affect everybody. I think there's not going to be we're not going to return to normal. I think we're all going to carry a piece of this into whatever the result of this pandemic is.
Yeah. I love how you just said that. That really hit me, because I definitely I long to be present, but I also love efficiency. So the cry of my soul is to be present.
Right.
But the practical nature of my life is efficiency. So when you just talked about the grid, I look at my calendar so many times a day. So while you were talking, I kind of had this I was slightly convicted. I should do what Caleb's doing. I need to think about that too. No, I really did. I was like, pay attention to that. Okay, so I'm parking that for me. This is what I was going to ask you. You and Kelsey have an unusual circumstance in your life, in that not only your husband and wife, but you're partners in business together. Yeah. And for our folks out there that also experience somehow they have some kind of business they're doing together, they might be entrepreneurs or self-employed like you guys. How do you navigate both the working relationship and the marriage relationship? Has that been difficult at all? And any thoughts about how to navigate that?
Mm-hmm. We're still working it out every day, but marriage, both the relationship and the business relationship, I think it's just a race to the back of the line. We just do everything that we can to put one another first and to kind of recognize mutually that we owe each other everything, but at the same time, I don't owe her, she doesn't owe me anything. I know that doesn't make any sense, but it's that kind of mindset I feel like you almost have to maintain health in a relationship. It's we know together that we owe everything.
But yet you don't expect it from one another.
But she doesn't owe me anything.
Yeah.
Just think of it this way. If you owed me $500, or I thought you owed me $500, and you give me $100, how thankful will I be when I receive that?
Ooh, yeah. Good point.
Not at all. I'm going to say, where is my other $400?
Yeah, right.
So if Kelsey is going out of her way to give me $100 or to show love to me, and then I am over here thinking, well, you better give me that $100, and also where's my other $400? Where's the rest of the love that you need to show me? If that's how I approach it, then I mean we both lose. That's a tough a tough place to be. So,
Man. I love that phrase. Like, it's the kind of the picture of Jesus kind of washing his disciples' feet. Like it's that it has a servant spirit to it. When you said we kind of race to the back of the line, but isn't it hard artistically and in a business? Don't you show up with like really strong opinions and go, no, I think it should sound like this, and I want this harmony, or like, is that a point of tension, or have you guys just found a rhythm where you really are able to defer to one another both artistically and business wise?
I think we just found our lanes. Truthfully, I was doing Anthem Lights for a long time, for a number of years, and so when Kelsey and I started doing music, it was kind of like we just sort of looped her in a little bit to the business model. And so she shows up and she sings her tail off and she does what she's great at, but she doesn't feel she sees that as a way to support me professionally, I think, in the same way that I show up at home and support her as almost a lead parent. You know what I mean? Like she runs the house, I run the workplace, and we're both involved highly in both.
Yeah.
But I feel like we just sort of found our lanes and how we collaborate in both.
Okay, so another question for you, because another thing that's interesting to me about your life, because I do think this is true of people, and maybe it will become even more true, is that the more people I talk to, the more I find they're looking for diversifying ways to make income. And so it's not just, the old days of like, I worked 30 years at the plant and, I got my Timex watch, I got this little thing and I get this side hustle, but I got really like 3 side hustles, or I got like 4 main businesses, and trying to maintain these things. It sometimes feels like it's pulling at you all the time, but especially in the world of Corona, it feels like suddenly this was not a bad idea for some people who go, well, this thing fell apart, but I did have this or this. You have Anthem Lights, which is a band with 3 other guys. You has a full management team. It's kind of a major thing, and it has been for years. You have a duet that kind of its own thing with your wife. You have your own solo stuff, which you just started releasing. So you kind of have these different. How do you manage all of them? Have you found a trick to? Do you feel the pressure to be like, oh, what am I thinking? I should just do one thing? Or have you found a rhythm to having multiple lanes? Because I think this is going to be a thing for people, and maybe it is already for a lot of folks.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I think, with Anthem Lights over the years, we've become so much more efficient in the way that we create, where it used to take us a whole week to put together one song. Now we walk into the studio, we get together for a day and we arrange 4, 5, 6 songs, and then we walk in the studio and we record as many of them as we can. And then we show up, and where we used to show up and shoot one video, now we shoot 5, 6, 8, however many we can fit into a day.
Wow.
So we've just become better at what we do from an efficiency operational sense. And so that has allowed me to kind of branch out and do stuff with my wife and do my solo stuff. And it helps that those are all the same business model, essentially.
Yes, yeah.
So it's not like I'm trying to,
do carpentry work over here. Yeah, right. Yeah. Got it. Okay.
It's all very similar. But I don't know. I think.
Do you ever feel like, do you ever feel like one gets slighted, or do you ever feel like, I just wish I had more time for this thing? And how do you deal with that tension?
I think it's just kind of cyclical. It's like one week is really Anthem Lights heavy, and then another week will be really, my solo stuff will be kind of the focus, and then the next week it'll be mostly duo stuff. And it helps that the guys, that I'm in a band with, they've also got other things going on, and so I feel really fortunate that it works,
So you're also considerably younger than me. And do you think that this is a generational thing? Do you think that your generation, like, kind of doing multiple things is not that unusual? Or do you go, no, I think this is it doesn't matter what age you are. It is challenging to manage multiple things at one time.
Yeah, I think there's been a paradigm shift just culturally. We've all got computers in our pockets, and we can anybody can make a living on the internet if they commit enough time to do it and find something that they're passionate about. The caveat is, I think that patience is a totally lost art. Like, I think that, yes, we have all these tools where we can like create an instant gratification. You know, you can make a song and it can be seen millions and millions of times in the span of 24 hours. But at the same time, you have to grow it, you know, and like these days I feel like kids make TikTok videos, and if they don't go viral within the first 5 times, we're like, forget it. This is too hard.
Right.
Like, you have to spend years and years and years honing your craft and figuring out, what works and what doesn't, and failing a lot. And, it just takes a lot.
And that would be, I'd love to hear that kind of as we close out. Go back quickly to, because people maybe especially if after this interview, if they hadn't heard of Anthem Lights, they go online, they go, oh my, who has this many millions of views? I mean, it's pretty mind blowing how many millions of human beings around the planet have taken in your art. I mean, that's pretty dang special. And I think when if you come to the band recently, or even the work you and Kelsey have done, they go, well, these guys are an overnight success. You hear that kind of phrase all the time. Mm-hmm. But go back. How long have you actually been at this? I mean, take us all the way back to college, and so people know. No, this has been a long. Give a quick overview of the story of how Anthem Lights came to be.
Yeah, I met Chad and Alan in November of 2008. I was at Liberty University. Chad and Alan had both gone there previously. Chad was working on a solo Christian album. He and Alan and their producer at the time were creating this project. And through conversation, the idea of making it a vocal group became a possibility, and Chad was open to it. He thought it'd be cool. He grew up loving DC Talk and boy bands, and so he was all about the idea. And so they went to Liberty, or called Liberty, where I and the other original member were, and we tried out. They met us, and they had 5 or 6 guys there at Liberty try out, and me and another guy, Kyle, ended up making the group. It was more organic than an audition group, but we connected and it worked out, and we started making music, and we finished that project, and then we just sort of commuted back and forth from Nashville, and we signed our first deal. We signed a deal with Sony in 2009, and talk about patience. We signed paper in 2009. Our project didn't come out until the middle of 2011.
Wow.
And we were dropped January of 12.
Wow.
So, yeah. So there's an example of failing fast. And
in 3 years where it would feel like this thing's going to blow. Here we go. We signed the record deal. Like, this is the thing. And for 3 years, it's not quite what you imagined it would be.
Yeah, not at all.
Wow.
I mean, we were in the machine, man. We did 120 shows a year, and just for like 2 years, but we had a member quit. We got dropped by our label, and just in the interim while we were shopping other deals, we started doing these covers. And we put up a Justin Bieber cover on YouTube one day, and it got over 1 million views in like 2 days or something. It was the same. We dropped it the same day he dropped his version, and it gained a lot of traction for whatever reason. And we just sort of had an epiphany. We were like, man, we spent 6 months on the road just now, and we were in front of like 100,000 people or something on one of the biggest tours in Christian music, but we made this video in a day, and a million people saw it. There might be something to this internet thing. It didn't take a rocket scientist or whatever to figure that out. We just kind of, And so we made some more videos, and we quickly learned that being our own label and owning our own masters was financially, beneficial. And so the rest is history. We've just kind of been doing that for the last 7 years.
But for 7 years, for those who go, oh, this is neat. You guys just probably get together in a room and sing a song and millions of people watch it. It's 9 to, I mean, it may not be 9 to 5, but you have a schedule. You show up at work every day. Like there's orchestrating, there's setting, there's, as you talked about, picking the song, selecting the song, what's it going to be like, recreating the song, crafting it for your voices, choosing the voices, who's singing the harmonies, who's singing the parts. Then not only recording the song in the studio, but then you shoot a video for almost every song, right?
So yeah, I mean, there's the whole operational aspect of it, just producing the videos, and I think what people don't realize is there's a lot that goes into from the conception of an idea to what you hear on Spotify.
Yes, yeah.
Or what you see on YouTube. I mean, there's just a lot of work that goes from A to Z. There's 25 other steps or 24 other steps. So yeah, because we're our own label, so yes, I'm an artist, but sometimes I forget that I am an artist. Like I feel like my head, 70-80% of my focused business side of it. And then, I got to actually be a good singer and perform well and all this stuff.
Well, there's no question you've been inspiration to so many, Caleb, and
thank you.
You're what you do, what you guys have done online, and it's funny, because my sons live a little bit in the same world you do, and seeing the comments and seeing how one song can make such a difference in somebody's life, and I mean, these stories about someone who felt suicidal, and like the song touched their heart and shifted the direction of their lives. What a beautiful gift to be able to give to humanity. So thank you for your art. Of course, more than that, for me, just thanks for being who you are. You're an incredible person. You and Kelsey, to me, you're unreal, and or maybe I should say the opposite. You're incredibly real. Yeah. So just thanks for being who you are. Anybody who's around you, you see the light of God in you. And so thanks for being a light in the world, brother.
Thank you, Jamie. We love you, and we think the world of you, and Angie as well.
Well, thank you.